what's happened is the sanctity and safety of our society has been undermined by these people who crow on about the benefits of diversity. This culture of DEI, I think anyone who believes in this nonsense and who has basically peddled this rubbish, they've got Henry Nowak's blood on their hands.
When it comes to Makerfield, do you genuinely believe Restore Britain can win? Or are you trying to stop Reform UK from winning?
We don't listen to an aged, deficient poll from the Times, which shows us on 7%. That's just complete and utter rubbish.
And you think your support of Makerfield is way higher than that? Is there any secret deal with the Conservatives? Does Restore want to see the Conservatives back into power? And do you have these daily conversations with Kemi Badenoch, as Farage's close ally claimed?
Neither Lois Perry nor Alex Phillips, as you know, I was in the European Parliament with Alex, both of them are close, if not too close, to Nigel Farage, and have historically been so. So, they aren't in a position ready to act as what I would call independent commentators on the subject. But the answer on the Tory party is...
Rupert Lowe, what was your first reaction having seen the police body cam footage showing the death of Henry Nowak?
Well, Dan, it's pretty hard to watch, almost impossible to watch without getting feelings of absolute horror. And my immediate response to this is that Henry Nowak was actually killed as a direct result of conscious bias. We're all trained or taught that we should be aware of unconscious bias, which personally I think is a load of absolute drivel. But the police have actually been trained to, I believe, be consciously biased. And I find it incredible that we get a situation where two people have had an altercation and the police, without knowing any of the facts, immediately believe one side of that argument. That cannot be right in a country where you're innocent till you're proven guilty. And so I think the way in which we're being policed has gone very badly wrong. I think we need massive questions of the Chief Constable of Hampshire. I think his name is Alexis Boone. I checked his name earlier. He seems to have been remarkably quiet.
He hasn't spoken on camera. He sent his deputy to do so.
I think we should be hearing from Donna Jones, who always has plenty to say for herself. She's the crime commissioner. She always has plenty to say about how she's going to hold the Chief Constable to account for knife crime and for any form of violence against innocent people. We haven't, as far as I'm aware, heard anything from her either. And you've probably seen that we've been posting about the fact that we now, as we have in the past, think it's a matter of urgency that we have a referendum of the British people on the return of the death penalty. And I would personally campaign in favor of that, but I would respect, like I would any referendum vote. Unfortunately, our government didn't in 2016 respect the referendum outcome. On this one, I think we should all respect it. And in my view, had we had that referendum and had people voted for it, men like Digwear should be the first person who is removed from society for good. I don't see how anyone can think that stabbing somebody 5 times and then lying about what happened, and whose family behaved in a clannish way, in my view, entirely against the rule of law, has any place in our society. And I equally say those people who were involved in this crime by hiding phones, telling lies, covering tracks, if they're foreign nationals, they should be deported. If they're British nationals, they should be going to prison. So I also can't help juxtaposing this against the sort of pursuit of our armed forces, who are being pursued by Herma and Hilary Benn, and yet these police officers, who, in my view, made a catastrophic error of judgment, which resulted in a young man losing his life, are they going to be treated in the same way? Are they going to be found guilty of of killing somebody, because ultimately I think they played a big part in his death.
Elon Musk has backed your call on the death penalty this afternoon, Rupert, simply writing, "It is this or death." Do you think the Henry Nowak situation does represent an almost civilization crisis, especially for white people, natives in the United Kingdom?
Well, I think natives in the United Kingdom, and this is why we had a big debate yesterday about getting better data, because the government, I think they know there's a major problem, but they don't want to admit that this post-war multicultural experiment has palpably failed. And the best way of not admitting it is not to tell the truth about what's happening and the crimes that are growing, and the rape gangs, the stabbings, the crime that in a high trust society, which took us 1,000 years to develop, we were getting on top of the bad treatment of women, more of an equal society which respected ability. I think what we're seeing, Dan, is we're seeing the clan-like behavior rather than the respect for the rule of law, as I say. So I personally think what's happened is the sanctity and safety of our society has been undermined by these people who crow on about the benefits of diversity. And I don't agree with them. I think what diversity has done, it can, if it's true diversity on a limited scale and people integrate, it can be a good thing. But I think it's now happening on a huge scale. It's completely unregulated in that all these illegal migrants are arriving here and being treated better than the British citizens who've been paying their taxes all their lives. And we don't know who these people are. Most of them are fighting age young men whose sort of morals, creeds, and cultures are completely incompatible with ours. So I think we now, as I've said in the past, have a national crisis, and it needs to be dealt with across the board. And this culture of DEI, I mean, whoever came up with that name must have a sort of sick sense of humor. To be calling it DEI, which is almost like calling it God. Day is a bit like sort of godlike. Well, it's not godlike. We call it. We'd like to see it being named "Deport every illegal," as you know. But I think anyone who believes in this nonsense and who has basically peddled this rubbish, they've got Henry Nowak's blood on their hands. And I, as I say, I think conscious bias in this case has ended up in a death, an avoidable death.
But what's so shocking, Rupert, is that around this case, we still see the usual subjects throw around claims of racism. And it's even happened in Parliament this afternoon. I know you're aware of this, but the Labour MP, Tanmanjeet Singh Desi, stood up in Parliament and actually branded Restore Britain as racist because you're now calling for the Korpan, which is this ceremonial sword used, well, a bigger version of it was used in the murder of Henry Nowak, because you've called for it to be banned in public places. You're being described as racist in Parliament. Your response?
Well, in the same way, Dan, that I think there's two-tier policing, I don't believe in a two-tier legal system which treats people differently. If you come here, you abide by our laws, our rules, and our regulations. And if the British people aren't allowed to behave in that way, then I don't think anybody else should be. So I think, again, this is a manifestation of all of the sort of the attempt to make the British people feel guilty about our history. Well, I don't feel remotely guilty about our history. I'm proud of our history. I'm proud of what we did with the slave trade. Many people died. It cost us a lot of money. We stopped it. It was the British who stopped it. So we, I believe, are fundamentally a very good society. And what's happened is people have tried to make us feel guilty about our past. And once you feel guilty and ashamed of your past, Dan, these sort of vile cultures and sort of diktats are able to thrive. It becomes a very fertile environment for them to breed and proliferate. And as a result of that, you get a lot of sort of misguided people in public office who are trained in inverted commas and who are incapable of differentiating what is right from what is wrong. Because if the rule book is wrong, they follow the rule book. And, I think it was exemplified. I used it at our gathering of 300 branch members on Saturday at the Emmanuel Centre in London, which was a fantastically highly charged event where we got huge amounts of enthusiasm. But just before I got there, I got a call from our shepherd, who'd had a call from the police to say, could he come and help because a ewe in the field had a bucket on its head. So the shepherd said, well, I'm not actually anywhere near. Could you think you could take the bucket off the sheep's head, which would have been, you'd think, a relatively straightforward task? Well, the reply came, I haven't been trained to do that. Well, frankly, Dan, just use a bit of common sense. Take the bucket off the sheep's head, it can see, and then everybody can carry on as normal. So we live in a society that has been hugely undermined and is becoming rapidly mad. Well, as you know, there's my favorite saying, whom the gods wish to destroy, they first send mad. And I think that's rapidly happening to this country. And I cannot tell you how disgraceful this murder of Henry Nowak is. I mean, to put somebody in handcuffs who's clearly been stabbed, who's clearly in distress. And unlike the George Floyd situation, which I thought was a huge overreaction, there doesn't appear to have been any reaction at all, either from the general public or indeed from the authorities. And I hear, I wasn't in the chamber, but I gather Shabana Mahmood denied that there was two-tier policing. I don't agree. I think there is definitely two-tier policing, and our police force need a complete and utter overhaul, because I think they have lost sight of what they're there to do. And I think most people in this country would agree with me.
Why do you think anti-white racism has become so acceptable?
Because multiculturalism is failing and has failed, Dan. It's been a complete and utter failure and a disaster. And it's a bit like the COVID jab. I think everybody knows the COVID jab was a bad error, that the post office was a bad error, that the infected blood scandal was a bad error. How long does it take for the establishment to admit when they get things wrong? So they're not going to admit to these things, because what they like to do is allow enough time to wane away, and then they can say, oh, we made a mistake, and by which time most of the people who made the decisions have gone, and the public's memory is relatively short. But in this case, I think we are now seeing the effects of a misguided post-war policy of multiculturalism, which has failed the British people. And if we're not prepared to stand up and confront it now, then I think things can only get radically worse. And I was pleased yesterday in our debate in Parliament that
it was amazing.
Everybody across the spectrum agreed that data should be collected, that we should be able to identify the root cause of these problems, because then we can put them right. If we, using the sheep analogy, stick our head in a bucket and we ignore the facts and we pretend they don't exist, things just get worse. So I'm quite clear in my mind, and I think most British people with any common sense are pretty clear in their mind. And I'm very pleased that we're seeing a huge response to Restore Britain. I think the exciting thing for us is we are bringing people back to politics who can actually see there is some hope and there is some common sense being spoken. And there is a party that's going to put the British people first. So I can't say enough how I feel utter sort of pity and sorrow for the family of Henry Nowak. I mean, he should not have suffered like this. He was 18 years old. He had an entire life ahead of him, and his death was avoidable. That's happening more and more, Dan. And it shouldn't be. It should not be happening.
Nigel Farage attended the debate yesterday at Westminster. Rupert, were you surprised about that? Or do you feel like the pressure from Restore Britain is changing the approach from Reform UK? Because some people have also said today that Nigel's very strong reaction in regards to Henry Nowak, he said that the British public should be very, very angry today. He's had this emergency broadcast. He says that we should react with pure cold rage. He's spoken about White Lives Matter. A lot of the commentary, the political class, are suggesting that change in rhetoric from Nigel Farage and Reform UK is because of the pressure that Reform UK are under in Makerfield. But first, before we get back to the show, a quick word about something I use genuinely every day, Surfshark. Most people browse the internet, shop online, check emails, or jump onto public Wi-Fi without thinking twice. It feels routine, right? But what you don't always see is what's happening in the background. Every click, search, and website visit leaves a digital footprint. Advertisers can track your activity. Hackers can take advantage of unsecured networks, and your personal information can end up far more exposed than you realize. That's why I use Surfshark. It helps make my online activity much harder to track by encrypting my connection, hiding my IP address, and adding a layer of privacy whenever I'm browsing. Whether I'm working from home, traveling, or using Wi-Fi in a hotel or an airport, I'd rather know my data is protected than just hope for the best. And Surfshark is more than just a VPN. It protects your connection, your devices, and your personal information in one place. Its ad blocker helps cut out intrusive ads, trackers, malware, and phishing links, so your browsing feels cleaner and safer. That matters whether you're reading the news, shopping online, or just trying to avoid the endless creep of being monitored across the internet. What I also like is that it's simple to use. One account covers unlimited devices, so you're not just protecting one laptop or phone, you can secure the whole household. So if you want an easy way to protect all aspects of your online life, go to surfshark.com/outspoken or use the code outspoken at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN plus a 30-day money-back guarantee. That's surfshark.com/outspoken using the code outspoken for 4 extra months. But now, back to the show.
Well, I think there's some truth in that, Dan, and we actually had, I think, I saw Suella Braverman, I saw Anderson, Nigel Farage, and Robert Jenrick was there. So I think 4 of them, which was a big turnout, given that in the past they've ignored debates like that pretty much. And I do think it probably reflects the fact that they're concerned about what's happening in Makerfield and more widely in the country. My own opinion, as you know, is I was helping Nigel to become Prime Minister and lead the country, but I now don't think that he is the right person to do that. I think he's a trend follower, not a trend setter. I think he's more interested in ensuring that he tries to protect and secure as many votes as possible. So I think the vote count comes above the principle count. And we talk at Restore Britain in principle. We like to be governed from a principle point of view. And if people don't agree with that, that's fine. But to try and trend follow and behave as if you are the same as the current political establishment, I don't think that's going to work for the British people. So I think we are getting huge traction. As I say, the most exciting thing is the reflexive setting up of branches of Restore everywhere, the enthusiasm of people. They are self-starting. They're very excited about what's happening. And that was clearly evident on Saturday. I should have invited you along. It was a very long day.
It looked amazing, actually. And I was glad to see the organisation because, of course, that's something that people say a lot about Restore, isn't it? Oh, you're not ready. Reform has all of this organisation, has all of the bureaucracy in place. When it comes to Makerfield, do you genuinely believe Restore Britain can win? Or are you trying to stop Reform UK from winning, which is what has sparked a lot of the political meltdown around this contest on the right?
Well, in answer to your question, we don't go into any contest to do anything other than win it. And I think the essence of democracy is you tell people what you stand for and you put yourself up there and you allow them to vote for you if they agree with that. And you saw what happened in Norfolk, which hardly got reported, where I think Nigel Farage said we'd get less than 1%. In the end, we swept the board in all the county council seats for Great Yarmouth. I think we won 9 out of 9, and you could have halved every vote and we'd still have won. We won the borough council seat, which gave us the casting vote on the borough council. And in Makerfield, we're seeing the most incredible canvassing returns. So we don't listen to an aged, deficient poll from the Times, which shows us on 7%. That's just complete and utter rubbish. And
you think your support of Makerfield is way higher than that?
Much higher than that. And I've been up there. The people are fantastic. The enthusiasm is fantastic, and I think the authenticity of what we're doing is appealing to everybody, and we're going to give them an opportunity to vote for us. I think it's not right that it should be demanded that we step aside. I personally don't think it makes any difference whether we have Starmer remaining, whether we have Burnham coming in, or whether we have Wes Streeting. They're all the same. They're out of the same mold, the whole lot of them. And I happen to think the Labour Party is finished, Dan. And when our Rape Gang report comes out, I don't see how anyone can vote Labour ever again, given that they have basically put the furtherance of the Labour Party ahead of the interests of the most vulnerable white working class girls in our society for 30, definitely, probably 40 and up to 50 years. And, morally, I think that is reprehensible. So I actually think this is the last throw of the dice for the Labour Party. They're broken anyway. Andy Burnham is not the sort of ghost buster that they all make him out to be. He's actually, in my view, a failed politician. He blows with the wind. I don't think he's picked the right seat in Makerfield. He's just trying to clamber on the backs of the people of Makerfield in order to further his own career and fulfill his ambition to become Prime Minister. They're a Leave constituency. He is a Rejoiner and a Remainer. So I think we've got every chance in Makerfield, and we're in it to win it, Dan. We're not there just to make up the numbers. I can assure you of that. And I say to people who tell me, oh, you should stand aside, why don't you come up to Makerfield and see for yourself, instead of sitting in your armchair, being hoodwinked by a palpably erroneous poll in the Times? Who owns the Times, for goodness sake?
Yes, although the Times did run a piece yesterday in their newspaper suggesting that all of MAGA and all of Donald Trump is now saying actually Rupert Lowe could be the next Prime Minister. So there's definitely been a bit of a bursting of the bubble in the mainstream media. Look, what we have seen, Rupert, is a total meltdown, though, from Reform UK. They are clearly panicked. A lot of people close to Nigel Farage are flinging some pretty terrible accusations at you, and I think it's right that you have an opportunity to respond. Lois Perry, someone who's been very close to Nigel Farage, said that you were in daily conversations with Kemi Badenoch and that you have stitched up a deal with the Conservative Party. Alex Phillips, also very close to Nigel Farage, says that Restore effectively exists just to get the Tories back into power. And again, there's some type of document that exists showing that this is all some type of psyop. Can you just respond to that? Is there any secret deal with the Conservatives? Does Restore want to see the Conservatives back into power? And do you have these daily conversations with Kemi Badenoch, as Farage's close ally claimed? Okay, half of you watching this are not subscribed to Dan Wootton Outspoken, and the best way you can support what we do is by hitting that subscribe button. It is completely free, and turn on the notification bell to be alerted to our new episodes.
Absolutely not is the answer to that, and neither Lois Perry nor Alex Phillips, as you know, I was in the European Parliament with Alex, both of them are close, if not too close, to Nigel Farage, and have historically been so. So, they aren't in a position ready to act as what I would call independent commentators on the subject. But the answer on the Tory party is definitely not. If you watch me, I haven't been involved with the Tory party since I fought against the Maastricht Treaty. I left the Tory party on the basis that I didn't want to get further into the European Union. I stood for the Referendum Party in '97 to save the pound, which we achieved with the help of Jimmy Goldsmith, whose praises I've always sung consistently. I then did a lot for Vote Leave and Business for Sterling. Then I was a Brexit Party MEP. Then when Nigel left politics to make some money, he told us that when we all had dinner with him at the Arts Club in Dover Street. That was myself, Ben Habib, and Robert Rowland, who's tragically now dead. We kept reform going. So I've consistently, and I always say, watch what the hands are doing, not what the mouth is saying. I've always consistently fought for an option other than the Tory party. And a lot of the legislation which we are now battling against isn't Labour legislation. As much of it as the damaging stuff is Tory legislation. That's the legacy we're fighting. You know, when I sit on the Public Accounts Committee and I see the waste everywhere, you know, I see the reparation payments, I see the compensation payments, I see the waste of money on HS2, which again was a Boris initiative. Honestly, Dan, the Tory party is broken. It's got some good young Tories. I always say that. The 24 intake have no blood on their hands, and I think a lot of them are very good MPs, and they don't deserve to be in any way criticised. I think Kemi herself is a good lady, but she's been dealt, as I've said consistently, a very poor set of cards. She's played a good hand with them so far. But I don't think the Tory party is capable of bringing back the kind of people that we're seeing come back to Restore Britain, because what have they done over 14 years, culminating in an 80-seat majority, with the power they were given to effect the changes that are necessary? The answer to that is they let the British people down. They know that. They admit that. So they've got the legacy of the Cameronite One Nation Tories. They are not entirely at peace with themselves. I don't have any criticism of any of them. They're all very nice people, but they cannot deliver what the country needs, Dan. And I'm absolutely clear in my view, the country needs change by 2029 at the latest, or it could easily become too late, both as a result of this mass, untargeted, legal and illegal immigration, which is happening, which is a direct consequence, by the way, of Tony Blair's legislation. And I thought it was fascinating that the old crone himself came out last week, the man responsible for almost every policy which damaged Britain terminally, came out and repudiated most of what the foundations that he'd laid when he was in power. Him and Brown and his other sort of misguided sort of new Labour operators. So, you know, I think people can smell the wind. Change is coming. I think the British people are going to vote for change. And Tony Blair, call him many things, but he can smell the change in the wind. And he knows that if somebody who knows the game gets into power, he is going to be held accountable for an awful lot of the damage that Britain has suffered, along with those people who surrounded him at the time. It's his legislation, you know, the Human Rights Act, you know, the creation of the Supreme Court, which has made our judiciary a joke. Our judiciary is now completely corrupt, Dan. You know, I wouldn't go to a civil court now. I went to one the other day and we got the most appalling judgment.
It was a stitch up. It was a total stitch up.
It's a total stitch up. Read the judgment. Didn't address any of the arguments. They've changed the way in which you go. You can appeal now. You don't appeal with the judge. You have to go put a new bundle together. Costs you another 10,000 quid. And the Court of Appeal very often turns you down for appeal, by which time you've wasted more money. Basically, you've now got a corrupt judiciary, the solicitors are all corrupt. It's all a money-making machine for a class of people who are contributing nothing to the financial engine of the country. And they set themselves up as this you know, holier than thou organization where everybody should come for good justice. But the truth is, the Supreme Court has undermined the independence of the judiciary, turned it into a quango, as a result of which you've got this rubbish, this DEI, all this other sort of garbage, which has been embedded into, you know, the backbench book guidance for magistrates, judges, everything else. So no, Dan. What we need somebody who's going to, you know, like Hercules, cleanse the Augean stables and actually make it all make sense again, because it's all gone badly wrong.
Absolutely. And I think America can see it, and increasingly more and more of us can see it here in the disunited kingdom, as I call it too, and the no justice system, because there is no justice. There is no justice for Henry Nowak today. He's lost his life. But Rupert Lowe, such a pleasure to have you, because I thought it was very, very important to hear from you on what is a very, very dark day for our country.
It's a very dark day, Dan. Very dark day.
It really is. Rupert Lowe, leader of Restore Britain. Thank you so much. Dan Wootton Outspoken is your no spin, no bias, no censorship outlet for independent news. We have no big tech backing or billionaires pulling my strings, but that does mean I need your support. So please hit subscribe on YouTube, turn on the notification bell, and subscribe to Dan Wootton Outspoken on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It's totally free, but allows me to continue my promise to always keep fighting for you.